My whole life, I've always felt like the weird girl. Not because I behaved weirdly, at least from my perspective, I didn't, but because I simply didn't fit in. If you were to line up my entire immediate family, you would see that I stick out like a sore thumb. So within my home, I was always the different one. And it didn't stop there. Growing up in a Christian cult that was very controlling, whenever I left my home, all of these rules and all of that control that I grew up with, other kids just simply can relate to it. So even in trying to establish relationships, I was different. I was raised differently from other kids because of that. I was socialized differently. And as a result of that, I learned that the only place I could fit in was within, because I don't truly fit in with my family. I wouldn't say that I'm the black sheep, but I do carry some of those qualities. I think of myself more as a scapegoat in my family. I'm the one that everyone uses to manage their discomfort. I'm the one that everyone dumps on, because when we need somebody to blame, I'm always the perfect person for that job. These are not things that bother me anymore. I've accepted that this is how my family functions. And this is primarily because I left the cult, So me creating that separation automatically made me the villain. And I embrace that title. I'm comfortable with it because I'd much rather live my truth and be who I am than to fit into some mold so that other people can be comfortable while I am uncomfortable. The story that I just told you is the story of Aquarius. When you study Greek mythology, you'll notice there's a theme with Aquarian energy. It's a theme of separation. It's a theme of isolation. It's a theme of loneliness that comes from being socially rejected. All Aquarius Sun, Moon, and Rising have to go through this journey because it is from that rejection that they find their true selves, that they find their voice, that they find their purpose, and they find what they're living life for. Welcome to the Aquarius Podcast. Welcome to the Aquarius Podcast. Thank you so much for joining me for another astrology reading of our full moon, which is happening here in Aquarius, and it's slated to be happening here in the US on the 9th of August. So what we're going to do is first go over the placements for that day. The full moon in Aquarius is happening with the sun in Leo, so we're having a polarity here between sister signs. Leo is all heat. Leo is ruled by the sun, and Aquarius is ruled by Uranus, very cold and distant energy. So naturally, this polarity is going to bring some internal conflict within. Our identity is going to get refined under this new moon. There is a collective rebalancing of our identity, of our energy, of our emotional detachment, and of our individuality as people. The fact that this full moon is happening under these early degrees of cardinal signs and air signs is already telling us that we're going to have to reboot our mindset. Aquarius energy is technological and scientific energy. So on this day, we're having the sun in Leo. Leo is all about performing, creating, being confident, being noble, and seeking validation from all of their works, via their authentic self-expression. So Leo's all about getting the accolades for their performance. The question Leo is here to ask themselves is, who am I when I'm not on stage? Who am I when I'm not performing? And that person is who Leo is here to truly embody. So the focus for Leo under their Leo sun is to increase their self-expression and increase their pride and their love of their legacy. There is a deep feeling here, a deep yearning to be seen, to be loved, to be acknowledged, to be admired. But with this deep-rooted emotional request, there's also this subtle fear of, what if I'm not enough, with the applause? What if even after the applause come, I don't feel good enough? Or what if the applause are not good enough for my performance. There's a tendency here with Leo energy to make emotions more dramatic than they need to be. There's a tendency here to dominate situations as a Leo, and oftentimes Leos do this not to be, not to be unkind, but because they have this deep need to reclaim themselves in every space that they hold. And oftentimes what that will look like is dominating situations as a way to reclaim center stage. What Leo is here to learn is that returning to their essence is not about performing. It's not about the persona. It's about the soul's work. It's about finding what's burning underneath their desire to be seen and their desire to be celebrated. That is who they really are underneath the image. Aquarius Moon, on the other end, is the complete opposite of Leo because the Aquarius Moon is detached. They don't desire to be on the stage. They may yearn for it because Leo being the sister, they have similar energy that they share, but Aquarius is more comfortable being cold and being in the dark, not in the light. They work best when they're working from the background. So we're having a polarity here of hot and cold split. Aquarius, unlike Leo, is more reflective, more analytical, and they tend to over intellectualize our emotions as opposed to taking space and feeling them boldly and proudly the way Leo does. With Aquarius, there is a feeling of separateness. There's a feeling of being outside of the circle. There's emotional dissonance. There's a feeling of watching life happening from outside looking in. Aquarians typically withdraw from emotional situations. They're more likely to observe emotional reactions from afar to regain objectivity. They're very fixated on being logical, being practical. They avoid vulnerability for the sake of rational thinking and rational control. What Aquarius is here to learn is that it's important to balance the heart with the head. Leo is the heart and Aquarius is the head. They need to come together. Emotions are human. It's okay to let our emotions be felt. We just don't want to let them drown our logical perspective or keep us separated from others because Aquarians, much like Leo, are here to connect. Okay, so that connection is their spiritual obligation as human beings. Leo does that via performance, and Aquarius does that via sharing of ideas. We also have Mercury in Leo. Mercury in Leo is bringing us back to old conversations that we've had, old decisions that we made. Our ego is probably getting bruised right now with new revelations that we're learning. This is because Mercury is currently retrograde. So we're revisiting ideas. We're revisiting, our communication style. We're revisiting the way that we've shown up in relationships, whether it was with ego or with love. We're revisiting our sense of authority or our sense of passion, our personal truth, our presentation in the world, our pride. We may experience some frustration if we felt unheard or misunderstood. We may experience some shame on how we've communicated in the past and how we've behaved in the past. There may be a desire to be defensive or, to lose control of our self-expression altogether or to over-explain. This is really a chance to update our narrative about our relationship with our self-esteem and our pride. Along the way, people who struggle with communication, along the way, they were told that they couldn't speak their mind, and they were told that they couldn't shine, and they were told that they couldn't take space. This is an opportunity for you to decide whether you still believe the people who told you that, or if you believe something else. Because if you believe something else, this retrograde is asking you to do things differently. Venus in Cancer is bringing us back to love, emotional safety, emotional nurturing. It's bringing us back to our home, our mothers, a memory of our home, or emotional connection with our home. When Venus is in Cancer, we ruminate a lot about the past. We think a lot about family dynamics, family history. There may be some sentimental feelings associated with that. We might feel protective of our family and our family history. We might feel even insecure about our family or family history. We might want some emotional reassurance that we're safe within our family. When Venus is in Cancer, there's less of a focus on being rational, less of a focus on logic. It's all about caretaking, people pleasing, emotionally withdrawing if we feel hurt, as opposed to communicating and taking action to resolve the hurt. Venus in Cancer can be very easily threatened by the outside. This placement comes to teach us that true love begins within. It begins with mothering the child that was abandoned. That child is who needs all the love. So during this time, we're being called back to our inner child so that we can reparent them. Mars in Libra is about harmony, but that harmony is only possible if there's justice and equity in the air. When Mars is in Libra, there's a battle between asserting ourselves and being collaborative. There is a tendency here to overanalyze disagreements, conflicts. We want to keep the peace, but we can't do it successfully while our emotions are being suppressed. So naturally, that brings irritability to the surface. Sometimes that irritability shows up as passive aggressiveness because we're trying to be polite, but we're angry. So sometimes that looks like indirect confrontation. Trying to elicit an emotion in others that we're not yet ready to own with our mouth, trying to appease ourselves and others, through performances where we pretend to be unbothered. And then naturally, often this is followed with sudden emotional outbursts after being too nice for too long, So the lesson here is to learn that harmony in relationships doesn't mean that there's no conflict. In fact, research shows that when couples stop having disagreements in relationships, especially if they're married, that's usually an indication that they will be getting divorced. When couples are headed for divorce, they stop fighting because mastering conflict resolution through grace, clarity, love, and assertion is what's required to have a successful marriage. Jupiter's conjunction in Cancer right now is bringing a lot of empathy, a lot of self-compassion, a lot of generosity. Maybe we're being overly caring or overly loving towards other people. We're being more sensitive towards other people's emotional needs. We may be overextending ourselves emotionally right now to other people. Care can be a way for Cancer to control others. And sometimes it's a way that they use to feel needed. If they've abandoned themselves, they need something to work on. They will use care to find a sense of purpose in the world. This is a time for us to really reflect on our home life, on our idea of belonging, and our idea of safety. It's a time for us to think about how we're showing our big heart, our big feelings, and sometimes our big emotions, how we're using emotional intelligence to nurture ourselves and the people in our lives. Jupiter in Cancer wants us to feel that our emotional depth is not a weakness. It's actually wisdom. It's full of intuition. Jupiter in Cancer wants us to balance our emotional depth, our emotional sensitivity with healthy boundaries. Saturn is currently retrograde in Aries. Saturn retrograde in Aries is asking, where did I fail to assert myself with integrity? Aries is all about assertion with integrity. So right now there may be some self-criticism around, our personal goals or confidence, our ability to assert ourselves, our level of assertiveness. We might feel frustrated or guilty, or we might feel like a failure for not being strong enough, or not embodying enough of our leadership qualities or independence or confidence. Out of fear of making mistakes, we might be hesitated to take action. And sometimes that hesitation can look like rigidity, where we're overcompensating and we're not actually wanting to do things differently. This retrograde in Aries is about redefining what it means to be a mature individual. Not the childish, reactive Aries ego, but the Aries true essence, which is rooted in purpose and integrity. Uranus in Gemini is bringing restlessness and mental energy to the forefront. This time period is going to bring us a lot of sudden insights, a lot of unexpected shifts in perspective. This is a revolution of the mind. Uranus, as you know, is electricity. It is the ruler of Aquarius. So new ideas come fast when Uranus is in Gemini because Gemini is traditionally ruled by Mercury, the fastest planet in our solar system. Uranus in Gemini is here to disrupt the status quo. It's disrupting old mindsets, old frameworks. There's a mental excitement here that borders on anxiety because there's a lot of unpredictability in the air. There's a lot of information coming at us daily, very, very fast. And much of it is rooted in fear, honestly. So we seek stimulation, but the stimulation is often bringing fear and anxiety. We're more interested in debating right now and questioning things. We may resist old ways of doing things, old social norms, old belief systems, old social roles. There is a liberation here through curiosity. What's happening right now is that the way we think is being upgraded, not just what we think about, but how we think about ourselves and how we think about the world. Neptune in Aries is a rare and provocative placement, especially because it's retrograde. Neptune in Aries is internalizing our illusion, our ego, and the lies that we tell ourselves about who we are. Essentially, the false identity that we created is crumbling. And if it's not crumbling, I promise you, it will be crumbling. Neptune in Aries brings an identity crisis to the forefront. It wants us to ask ourselves, who am I, really? Underneath all the masks that I wear, who am I? Neptune in Aries is longing for transcendence, but it's hard for it to find it because Neptune is the planet of illusions. So there's some disorientation happening here. We want to escape through action, but retrograde is asking us to actually slow down and examine. The message here is that chasing clarity without purpose is fruitless. We need to first ground ourselves in a deep karmic cleanse of our ego death, okay? The ego is being crushed right now. The ego self has to die so our true spiritual selves can emerge. We're being asked to dissolve what isn't true about us. We're being asked to dissolve the acts that we put on to seem a certain way. And we're being asked to let go of our persona and instead embrace the energy and essence of the person. Pluto in Aquarius is asking, how do I consciously replicate the very systems I claim to resist? During Pluto in Aquarius, we're asked to examine our shadows in the context of society. There's a lot of polarized thinking during these times. There's good, there's bad. There's red, there's blue. There's male, there's female. There's right, there's wrong. Naturally, with all of this restriction, what we're also getting is a lot of social rebellion, a lot of emotional detachment, which is really how you reclaim this energy. There's going to be power struggles in friendships during this time, in communities, in movements. This is a necessary confrontation with the ways that we unconsciously do relationships, the way we unconsciously do self-love, the way that we feed our shadows without being aware of them, the way that we don't take ownership of the energy that we bring to society and to the world. Pluto in Aquarius is a deep transformation that really begins with each one of us transforming ourselves into brighter lights. We came here to light up the world. Remember, at the beginning of the world, there was dark matter, then there was the Big Bang, right? And then that explosion led to the creation of the planets, including planet Earth. So we're here to bring light to the world, and that is our spiritual obligation. The North Node is currently in Pisces, also retrograde, which is calling us to surrender. Pisces is not as objective, logical, and strategic as Virgo. Virgo is the sister of Pisces. Pisces is spiritual. Pisces is intuitive. Pisces is connected to karmic truths. During North Node in Pisces retrograde, our habits are up for review. We're being pulled towards finding spiritual meaning, leaning into the mystical world that we live in, leaning into compassionate living, into self-compassion, into mindfulness. There may be a feeling of confusion in the air as we're yearning for kind of this spiritual melancholy as our relationship to spirituality is dying and being reborn. There may be a desire to avoid this emotional pain by escaping to drugs, alcohol, sex, television, you name it. There's a hypersensitivity here to our own emotions and other people's emotion. We may be more sensitive towards what other people are feeling. We may be able to pick up on their emotions without them even telling us what's going on with them. This transit is about letting go of the need to fix everything, letting go of the need to know everything. The lesson here is to have faith, to trust in the unknown, to trust in the flow of life, to trust in what cannot be seen. And this is what manifestation is about. Yes, we're living in this present moment right now with the reality of the present moment and all the facts of the present moment that we get from the news and all of that good stuff. We can choose to live there, or we can choose to live in a better future, because we know if we're going through a rough time right now that this too shall pass. Faith is not about what we can see. Faith is about the unseen. It's about the expectation or hope for things that are unseen, that are much better than our current reality. So those of us who struggle with our relationship to our faith or imagination or spirituality are going to have a really hard time during this time, because that's what's required for us to be able to move ourselves forward into a new reality. Lilith in Scorpio is about exploring our emotional intensity, our erotic power, our rejection of shame. It's about examining our taboos, our obsessions, our emotional depth. Lilith in Scorpio brings raw psychic insights to the surface. As you know, Scorpio is all about no nonsense, give me the real deal. Feelings during this time are intense, they're passionate. There may be a lot of resentment that comes to the surface. If we choose to suppress our feelings, this is not the time to do that. Scorpio is about owning your emotions. Emotional manipulation, control, self-isolation may be behavior that we exhibit as we make our way through this transit. It's important to be aware of it. It's important to study our shadows so we can integrate them into our essence as opposed to denying them. This Lilith placement wants you to reclaim your sexual power, your sexual truth, and your emotional truth. Sexuality is about creativity, okay? Creativity is about manifestation. We cannot create without emotions. This is what Leo knows. So no matter how messy our feelings are at the moment, we're being asked to really make space for them. It doesn't matter how dark the feelings are, Scorpio can handle it. Lastly, moving on to Chiron in Aries. Chiron in Aries has the wound of the self. People who were born with this placement really struggle to be themselves. They struggle to be comfortable in their body, in their identity, in their willpower, in their past, in their vulnerability. Chiron in Aries brings a lot of shame to the surface, lots of insecurities, lots of inadequacies around having the agency to do things in this world, having the independence and the free will to do things, having the initiation power to go for the things that we want. Oftentimes, when people are living in their low vibration energy with Aries, they overcompensate through bravado that can sometimes look like narcissism, because the truth is, at the root of it is they don't feel seen, they don't feel heard. So the bravado is to cover up the feelings of insecurity that they carry deep inside. Or they can flip that and just completely shrink from visibility so that they can, live according to this ache, this wound of, I'm not good enough and I don't deserve. Chiron in Aries is asking us to heal, not just by becoming tough, but by being brave enough to be real, to be authentic, to own our scars, to own our shame, to own our insecurities, to own our inadequacies, to reclaim our power, to reclaim our voice, and to reclaim our ability to transform our lives. It wants us to take responsibility for ourselves. This is a powerful, emotionally complex time that we're living through right now. There's going to be a lot of tension between the ego and the need to detach from the ego. We're also under this kind of retrograde energy, which is bringing back pain that we've forgotten. And there's a deep push here for spiritual awakening and for shadow work so we can integrate our shadows with how we choose to move through the world. The moon in Aquarius is a detached moon. Aquarius is about emotional objectivity through logic. Aquarius also uses intuition to guide their scientific process. Aquarius is a zodiac sign that rules the collective. It's about empathy. It's about freedom. It's about loving yourself enough to trust your instincts. The emotional security for Aquarius moon comes from being autonomous, belonging to a community while keeping your identity. The ideals of the Aquarian moon are about being close, but keeping a level of emotional boundaries, okay? Emotional enmeshment is not what Aquarius moon is about. Aquarius moon doesn't do emotionality in the way other people do it. It's a language, and this language is coded in values, ideas, symbols, social vision, and patterns. It's focused on the future, but anchored in the lessons of the past. Aquarius moon learns early to hide their feelings, to push down their feelings in order to stay safe in unstable or unpredictable environments. As a result, Aquarius moons are more comfortable observing rather than feeling. So they analyze instead of absorbing. Think of the Aquarius moon child like a little adult in their family. And most of these children grew up in a very chaotic home. And these were precocious children who were deemed smart, emotionally mature, detached, helpful, and they were rewarded for that. They were praised for that. But unfortunately, putting that child in that role made them feel like they didn't belong. So the Aquarius moon job now is to ask themselves, how can I stay connected with my emotions without being overwhelmed by them? Because these children never learned to actually have real feelings. All their feelings were managed so they could respond to the need of the home. They're here to learn how to be free while giving themselves permission to feel their feelings deeply. This full moon is about refinement. It's about trusting our intuition to be able to anticipate what's coming next. It's about nervous energy and the need to release emotional, loaded thought processes that keep us in the old programming. We're being pulled towards understanding, organization, improvement. It's not enough to just feel feelings. We want to understand why we feel what we feel and what to do about the feelings that we have. The Aquarius moon here wants a higher reason for our emotional reactions. It's not enough to have the reaction, which is where Leo is. Aquarius wants you to ask yourself why the reaction matters, not only to your personal story, but to humanity as a whole. Now let's get into the full moon and the aspects associated with this transit. It is really a face-off between our ego, which is our conscious self, the sun, and our moon, which is the unconscious self, okay? So at the sun, we have ego, and at the moon, we have the nurturing energy of the mother. We're experiencing a split here between wanting to be seen, authentically seen, which is Leo energy, and emotionally understanding ourselves from a distance, which is Moon in Aquarius. There may be some difficulty here with integrating what we feel and how we communicate it. The emotional body is saying, just stay back, stand back, and observe what's happening. While our ego is saying, look at me, love me. We might switch between intense vulnerability and being completely emotionally disconnected. At times, you may express your feelings through performance, or you may intellectualize them rather than using them as an opportunity to build intimacy. You may crave connection, but you may be doing things out of ego that sabotage the trust that you've developed in your relationship. Being too avoidant, being too analytical or too cool or too focused on your role within the group instead of feeling your feelings can lead to problems down the line in the relationship. To resolve this polarity between, the ego and our emotional needs, it's time to practice integrative self-expression. And what that looks like is bringing our personal heart space into our collective purpose. So we don't just want to perform. We don't want to just perform our truth. We want to feel our truth. We want to own our truth. We want to relate to our truth first and then perform our truth. It's about connecting the mind with the heart. Moon trine midheaven is bringing attention to our public image and how other people perceive us. It's also about our career, our legacy, how we function. So we're being called to be more emotionally intelligent. We're being hardwired to guide, to teach, to influence others with objectivity and insight. The full moon in Aquarius is calling us to examine our feelings, in terms of how other people perceive us and how we feel about it. In other words, do people in your community see you as stable? Do they see you as someone that's put together? Do they see you as someone that's competent, that's insightful? There's an instinctive link here between how you feel, what you're meant to do in this world in terms of work, and how you're particularly helping and guiding others to be more successful. You may find emotional comfort when working in roles that involve systems, organizations, or group dynamics. Leadership that's based on ideas rather than on dominating is what Aquarius energy is all about. So we're being called to channel our emotional intelligence into our jobs, into our public contribution. Aquarius moon trine to midheaven often shows up as an emotional, futuristic leader, someone that can articulate what everyone is feeling before people can even name what it is that they're feeling. Aquarius is a deeply intuitive zodiac sign, so when you put that trine, the midheaven, we're being asked to show up in a more authentic way in our places of employment. Some of the emotional themes and relational patterns associated with this transit are choosing analysis over emotional chaos and emotional volatility. What that looks like is suppressing our true feelings. As an example, if we feel jealous, if we feel envious, if we feel sad, if we feel scared, instead of feeling those feelings, we might choose to examine those feelings and replay conversations to see exactly when we let that show, as opposed to replaying the conversation to see why we felt that way. When we continue to show up in the world as if we don't have feelings, we place the burden on ourselves to always be the one that's cool, the one that's the therapist, the one that's emotionally stable, the one that's emotionally available to everybody. And when you allow other people to use you in this way, it leaves you empty emotionally. Your emotional cup is always going to be empty because you pretend to not be human and you pretend to not have feelings. You create all this room for people to show up in their true authentic selves and to take space, but you don't take any of your own. So naturally they project onto you the stoic image. You're like the one that's too cool for school, the one that never has a crash out, the one that never breaks down. And that limits your human experience. What Aquarius moon is here to learn is intimacy, okay? Yes, you need space in relationships for everybody to feel safe, but what you don't need is isolation. True emotional safety comes from mutual intellectual respect. You cannot have intimacy in friendship with people who do not share your ideals. You cannot have intimacy in friendship with people who want to cling to you emotionally while you're seeking to have a non-clingy emotional exchange. You cannot have intimacy in friendship with people who do not respect your ideas. Aquarius moon often attract lovers who are emotionally cold, unpredictable, or who seek to dominate them. As a result, the Aquarius moon person may fear feeling smothered in love or in any relationship, so they gravitate towards being aloof. And unfortunately, going too deep into that space leaves them feeling not loved. So then they're left emotionally starving. So they could be in a relationship with somebody while they're emotionally starved. The emotional understanding that Aquarius is here to gain comes to them through groups. Aquarius Moon, although they're comfortable being by themselves, what the last part of that journey is, based on Greek mythology, after that rejection from the group, is reintegration into the group. Aquarius Moon is here to be a part of a cause, a movement. They're here to play a vital role in a group setting, to generate ideas, to create circles that allow people to learn about themselves, to learn about relaxation, emotional boundaries, and that allows everyone to share from a place of authentic truth and shared vision. It's about liberating yourself via emotions. It's not about escaping emotions. The gift here is to witness your emotions without drowning, but also allowing yourself to feel them. Healing for this transit is about allowing ourselves to feel what we're observing from a distance. This full moon in Aquarius is an emotional climax. It's also about spiritual preparation. We're being shaped into a better version of ourselves. We're being shaped into somebody that can hold a paradox of being both sensitive but emotionally detached, of being both intellectually detached with emotional depth, of being both an intellect with deep empathy, of being both an individual who also needs a group to belong to. The shadow work here is around over intellectualizing our feelings as a way to bypass a vulnerability. Aquarius Moon loves to get into theories, reading books, learning new coping mechanisms. These are huge self-help people who love to learn cognitive intellectual information about how to be a better human being. And the problem is that information never makes its way to their heart. These are people that like to bypass all of the grief that's involved with healing, as opposed to asking themselves, why does it hurt? Why does it hurt right now? And that is the level of depth that we're being called to. The Aquarius Moon is a karmic moon transit, okay? It's about our emotional detachment, our group consciousness, our separation from others, and our yearning for authenticity. When we talk about karma here, we're not talking about good or bad. We're talking about a soul conditioning that's calling us to integrate our healing with our mastery of self in this lifetime. The core wound of the Aquarius Moon is around detachment. Because of the trauma early in life, Aquarius Moon has learned that they have to detach to survive. They're deeply afraid that if they stay too close to others, they will lose themselves. So to feel safe, they stand apart, and some of them even believe that nobody understands them and that they can never be understood by anybody because their experience is so weird, so different. Love here comes from being authentically yourself, okay? It's not about separation. It's about detachment while relating. The wound of Aquarius happens early in life where they're emotionally erratic and intellectually demanding caregivers basically created an environment where the Aquarius moon child had to be emotionally disconnected to be able to survive. Love in those homes was conditional. The caregivers may have been inconsistent. One day they're warm and loving, the next day they're cold and distant. So the child learns to observe the mother's emotions rather than to engage with her in an emotional reaction. So to stay ahead and to stay safe, they became very self-sufficient. They became very logical, very smart, very emotionally aloof. And in some cases, these children even parented the parent emotionally by becoming the wise one, the wise observer that gives the parent advice on how to navigate life situations. The emotional bypass through intellect was really coded in childhood. The fear of losing yourself in another was coded in childhood, because who wants to lose themselves in chaos? Feeling rejected, feeling like an outsider was also coded in childhood, because while your other friends were being kids, you were being a grown-up. Rescuing others instead of healing yourself was also coded in childhood. There's this ancestral wound for Aquarius Moon. It's usually the karma of their father and their mothers that they're carrying. There's a deep emotional trauma here linked to feeling like humanity failed you. This is why Aquarius Moon are very connected to social issues, to injustice, to wars, technological misuse, violations of humanity, betrayal of what it means to be a human. Aquarius Moon is here to transform all that despair into action, to accept the brokenness of the world without shutting down emotionally, and to reclaim their empathy without drowning in it. Some of the shadows of this moon placement are chronic emotional unavailability, attracting lovers that are either emotionally distant, cold, or chaotic, priding ourselves for being the rational one, the cool one, the smart one, the one that's above it all, as opposed to actually being a human who feels feelings like all of us. There's a secret grief to this placement because no one really knows who you are, because Aquarius thrives in isolation. There's also a passive-aggressive detachment here, with Aquarius being known as the ghoster of the zodiac. They give icy silences. They withdraw whenever, they feel wounded or misunderstood, or they feel like they don't fit in. Or whenever the vibe changes and Aquarius feels unsafe, they will withdraw from social circles. Sometimes the shadow side of this placement or this transit can look like over-identifying with a group so that we can avoid doing our own emotional intimacy work. So this healing path here under this transit is for us to reclaim our inner child. Where did I learn that being emotional wasn't safe? Can I feel my feelings without losing control? We're here to practice authentic connection. It requires dropping the mask of the observer and simply being emotionally present. And yes, it's messy, it's ugly, it's not clean, it's not organized, but it's truthful. And that's what we want to aim for. We're here to ground our idealism inside of our body. Somatic therapy is a good way to bring the feelings back into the body if we're used to separation. Any type of movement, whether it's dance, any type of fitness, yoga, martial arts, these are all strategies for us to get back inside of our bodies, where we can transition from being somebody who observes our feelings to somebody who lives inside our body, where we feel our feelings. Breath work is also an excellent tool to ground ourselves in our idealism, even when it looks like the world is failing us. And of course, music and arts are other means to do that. Aquarius Moon is here to heal our collective purpose. We're all here to heal humanity, but not from a place of we're the savior, but from a place of integration, meaning that as you allow your own heart to soften, and as I allow my own heart to soften, we can create a bridge between us where my healing and our collective transformation is happening. So you're healing, I'm healing, and collectively we're healing. Your emotions are valid, even if they make no sense. You don't need to understand everything to be safe. It's okay to need other people. We're all here together for a reason. You belong, even if you feel different. I want you to trust that your feelings are going to guide you to your truth. They're not going to drown you. The 3 best ways to manifest under this Aquarius full moon are to manifest increased self-awareness, manifest a vision for the world, and manifest your soul tribe. The 3 best things to manifest under an Aquarius full moon are to manifest increased self-awareness, to manifest a vision for a better world, and to manifest your soul tribe. Aquarius energy can accidentally manifest from a place of trauma logic, meaning, as an example, if you're somebody who has struggled with feeling rejected, either from your family or from society at large, you may think to yourself, I'm going to build something. I'm going to build an identity. I'm going to build something so I never have to feel abandoned again. I'll be so different that nobody can ever hurt me again because they will automatically reject me for being different right away. So I don't have to worry about them rejecting me. That's not manifesting from a place of healing. Okay, we want to manifest from a space of integration, not compensation. We're not trying to compensate for what we didn't get. We're trying to integrate the lessons we learned from what we didn't get to our current reality. One of the ways to do that is to write a let go and level up letter to yourself or to your past self. So on one side, you can write down the emotional patterns or the old belief systems that you had, the unconscious roles that you played into your family, especially around belonging, around partnership, around friendship, around leadership, around fitting in, or rejection. And on the other side, you can write how you choose to liberate yourself. So you let go, as an example of being emotionally aloof, being afraid of intimacy, being too focused on seeking approval from other people, being intellectually superior, having a savior complex. And then you call in, on the flip side, authentic self-expression, emotional freedom, and a community that celebrates your weirdness because it's aligned with your heart contribution to the world. Aquarius in astrology rules liberation. So we cannot manifest in a materialistic sense. So this full moon is really about freeing ourselves so we can be liberated. It's about letting go of the old you so you can embody your future self. With regards to manifesting a vision that serves the collective, I want you to remember that Aquarius is deeply connected to technology. So this is where we tap into the future. We want to transcend the 3D. So imagine yourself 5 years from now. Imagine the planet 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and download an idea, a system, a message, a project that you think is going to be helpful to all of us 5-10 years from now, and then create it. Ask yourself, am I uniquely wired to create what the future needs? Where is my rebellious authenticity leading me? How can my pain be turned into a pattern-breaking service? Then write a vision statement or design a concept map. It can be a spiritual, artistic, or technological, political, or interpersonal vision. It doesn't matter. As long as it's aligned with your values and what humanity needs right now, it's going to be allowed to fly. Remember, this full moon really is a portal for us to shed old skin and step into our leadership. Aquarius is ruled by Uranus, which is the higher octave of Mercury. So it governs genius ideas. It governs innovation. It governs future systems that haven't even been created yet. So if you focus on uplifting humanity and uplifting the system, you will automatically attract the right allies, the right ideas, and the right breakthroughs to be able to make a difference. Lastly, if you're looking to manifest your soul tribe, you can make a magnetize my tribe grid or altar. You can use symbols, photos, or words that represent the type of tribe you want to be a part of. You can call in visionaries, creatives, deep thinkers, healers, people with a rebellious heart. You can speak into existence the values that your soul tribe is going to carry. You can burn or bury any past ties that feel fake, shallow, codependent, or that no longer align with your true self. Journaling is an excellent tool for manifestation under an air moon. You can ask yourself and reflect on these questions. Am I ready to attract people who understand my mind and honor my heart? Does my current community support my freedom and my emotional truth? Am I safe to be fully myself around others? Then say it out loud and visualize yourself celebrating or collaborating with these energies, these people that you want to invite into your world. Aquarius is the sign of groups. It's a sign of community, of soul network, of chosen family. This is why many Aquarians are rejected from their birth family. And it doesn't mean they have to be fully rejected where they're casted out. Regardless of the level of rejection, it's always there, whether they're rejected for their ideas, for their emotions, for their beliefs, for who they married, whatever. There's a level of otherness that comes with this energy. The otherness that they learn in childhood is to help them create a society where everybody is allowed to be themselves without facing rejection. When your emotional body is ready to stop people pleasing, you start resonating with your authentic self. And when you resonate at that vibration, the universe is going to bring you people who are aligned with who actually gets you. So this full moon is a perfect energetic mirror to cleanse out all the attachments that you have in your life that are not your real community. People who are not really a part of your tribe, you're going to see them for who they are, and you're going to shift your energy. I recommend a ritual or a journal prompt around any of these manifestation methods for you to really work on integrating your shadows with your need for compensation. And what I mean is, because Aquarius is ruled by Saturn, there is too much of a focus here on compensation, on work. And what's more transcendent than this experience is embracing a gateway to radical emotional and spiritual maturity, okay? Compensation happens when we're unconsciously trying to fill a wound. We're trying to prove something. We're trying to avoid something. We're trying to speak to something that we didn't get, some sort of unmet need. So we chase external validation. The difference between Capricorn and Aquarius is that Aquarius, in addition to Saturn, is ruled by Uranus. Uranus is about progress. It's about future thinking. It's futuristic. It's essentially about the disruption of the status quo for the sake of a better future. And Capricorn is about the maintenance of the status quo for the sake of structure. There is an aspect of Aquarian energy that is focused on compensation, because Saturn is exactly about that. You work hard, you get this. And compensation is about the physical manifestation of our work. Uranus, on the other end, is not about tangible material things as it is about intellectual property. So what does compensation mean in manifestation under this Aquarian full moon? Compensation manifestation happens when we unconsciously try to fill a wound, try to fill a void, or try to fill some sort of unmet need by chasing something else. As an example, at the beginning of this podcast, I told you guys that I grew up in a Christian church and I left the church. I was shunned by my family and my community at the time for leaving. So I didn't have community. And I also didn't have a sense of identity because my entire identity was wrapped up in that cult, right? In that Christian cult. So what manifestation compensation looked like for me back then was I want to manifest a community that I can be wild and free with, because I grew up under all these restrictions and I wanted to feel something else. Now, wild and free is too open, right? And it invited more wounds, actually, because I wasn't really aware of the wound that I was running from. And now that I'm much later in life, I can see that that wound was really the rejection of my authenticity. But the compensation manifestation that I engaged in back then was manifesting a community that accepted me. Well, anybody accepted me. In fact, everybody accepted me. So at this point in the game, I'm looking for much more than acceptance, because I'm no longer looking for acceptance because I've accepted myself. This is what I mean. So my manifestation level upgraded from wanting to fill a void and wanting to fill an unmet need from childhood. Now I'm no longer chasing something external. What I'm chasing is to integrate with myself more. So in manifesting community, I'm looking for people that share similar values, similar ideals, similar ways of life. Not necessarily that are identical, but people that vibrate at the same frequency. Here's some other examples of compensatory manifestation. People who manifest success to prove their worth to the parent who abandoned them. It's like, I'll show you. I'll become the most famous person that in the world, so that you have to watch me on television, even though you can show up to take me to basketball practice, or manifesting love to avoid feeling abandoned. It's like, my parents abandoned me in childhood, so now I want to have somebody that's never going to leave me. Manifesting wealth because we're terrified of being powerless. My family made me feel powerless, so now I want as much money as I can get so nobody can ever tell me what to do. manifesting attention, manifesting followers, or manifesting impact because we're made to feel invisible at our core. All of those are examples of manifesting from a wound, from a void, from an unmet need. It's not about what you want. When you step into Aquarian energy, we go from the superficial, the external, that's what I mean by the superficial, the external, to the transcendence into the spiritual energy, okay? And the spiritual energy or vibration is making the world a better place. So in order to get to that point of how do I bring my contribution to the world in the most authentic way, which is really all where all of your power is under the Aquarius full moon, you have to ask yourself, why do you want what you want? Leo wants the applause. Aquarius wants Leo to reflect on why. Why do you want it? Why do you need it? If the energy driving your manifestation is lack mindset, survival mindset, fear mindset, trauma, if it's ego, trying to fill a void of your ego being crushed in childhood, so now you want to feel like you can take up space, you're likely either going to sabotage that manifestation when you get it, or you're going to attract energies to it that distort what you're working on because you're still a prisoner. You're still a prisoner of your creation. And because you created it from a place of woundedness, you're still a prisoner of your wound. And this is why oftentimes the most egotistical person in the room is also the one that suffers the most from low self-esteem. Because people with high self-esteem do not feel the need to prove their worth. They already know they're worthy. So they don't feel the need to step on others to prove that they're more important. Integrated manifestation comes from accepting yourself. And that's not possible without emotional awareness and a sense of inner coherence. We don't manifest to get away from who we are. We manifest to express who we are. Manifestation is not about chasing something, fixing something. It's about coming in alignment. The more aligned you are with your truth, the easier it is to manifest. The kind of manifestation that you want is the manifestation you produce from already feeling whole. What do I want to share with the world because I'm already whole? What wants to come through me, not just to me? Through me requires my personal experience. So I bring my whole self to the story as I am also utilizing my story to help others. So ask yourself these questions. Is this desire to manifest this thing that I want to manifest coming from my true self or from a wound? If I already felt whole, what would I want to create in the world? Am I trying to become something, or am I trying to discover who I really am? In other words, where am I still trying to prove myself? Am I ready to stop performing for whatever, affection, love, money, attention, ego boost, whatever? It's about understanding what's underneath your manifestation. What needs do you have that you believe this manifestation is going to fulfill? What would happen if you never manifested that thing? What emotions would you feel? Have you tried to fill that same need in other ways before? What was the outcome? What lights up for you when no one is watching? What feels authentically true to you? What feels meaningful to you, even if it's something that others do not recognize? Here's a simple reframe technique that can be helpful with this. As an example, you could say, I want to manifest a partner so I can feel love. An integrated way to think about this is I'm cultivating love in myself, and I invite a partner in who can share it with me. Notice, in the integrated reframe, the focus is on us. We're the center. We're the orbit. We're not orbiting around others. And that is Aquarian energy in its purest form. The sun orbits. The sun is bringing its light to Earth. Aquarius requires that you come to get their light. Another compensating manifestation. I want success so I can prove that I matter, that I can do it on my own, and that I'm strong and I'm powerful. The integration of that is, I already matter. I'm already strong. I'm already powerful. I want to express myself in a way that contributes meaningfully to the world. Very different manifestation. And lastly, I want to make money so I can feel safe. An integrated reframe is I'm building internal and external systems of support that reflect my values and provide safety. It's not about the money, it's about the support system. That is the true value here. So write down the part of you that's trying to compensate, okay? I want to be needed because I don't want to be alone, or I want to be needed because I don't want to feel like nobody loves me. I want recognition because I felt invisible as a child. Whatever it is, write it down and then feel it. Don't fix it. Feel it. Don't analyze it. Feel it. Don't bypass it. Feel it. Let the emotions rise. Sit with it. Sit with it for 5 to 10 minutes. Breathe into the grief and the sadness of that experience as a child and allow that to build your character. Speak that truth out loud. I see this part of me. I love it, but I don't need it to run the show anymore. You have to give your inner child the space to tell you its story, and you have to honor that voice. And after honoring that voice, you can keep your inner child from ruining your life until you acknowledge them and put them back in their correct position. They will keep sabotaging your success. Once you do that and you bring integration and harmony within your energy, you can write your integrated intentions. As an example, instead of saying, I want love so I can feel whole, you can write, I am whole. And from that wholeness, I choose to manifest more love in my life. I'm already free. I now call in collaborations and connections that match my freedom. My voice matters, and I choose to share it with those who are ready to hear it. We want to manifest from a place of integration, not from a place of compensation, okay? Manifestation is not magic. It's really about emotional regulation, emotional integration, and self-awareness. It's about divine spiritual alignment. It's really self-responsibility amplified. When you're whole, you create things that reinforce your wholeness. When you're wounded, you create and attract things that reinforce your wound. Until you're ready to integrate your shadows, which is your childhood woundedness, with your logical mind who's now able to observe that wound, and you're ready to feel it and give it the right place that it deserves in your life, you will continue to reenact your life out of this woundedness, which doesn't really allow you to make any segue with your manifestations. Now let's go ahead and transition onto what this means for the 12 zodiac signs. So this Aquarius Moon is going to activate different houses for each rising sign, basically showing us what we need to let go of, where we need to feel liberated, where we need to feel brought into our full awareness so we can grow. And it really starts with self-love. It starts with our personal evolution, and comfort is not required, okay? Uranus doesn't care about what makes you feel comfortable. It's about breaking free from what no longer works, especially any type of behavior, attitude that are linked to ego, that are linked to seeking approval, that are linked to wanting to control other people or control our emotions or wanting to avoid our emotions. This is all about learning emotional detachment for clarity, not for coldness, okay? Freedom comes from surrendering to our feelings, not out of proving a point or out of being rebellious, but out of a desire to evolve and to grow past our old selves. It's about being whole, being complete. Aries Rising, for you, this falls in the 11th house, which is the house of community, the house of belonging, the house of future vision. It's time to let go of needing to be the leader or the strong one in your group. Stop over-identifying with that persona. It's a performance-based persona that will only bring you friendships that use you, okay? When you're the strong one, people always see you as the one that doesn't have real feelings. Okay, you're the one that gets used. You're not the one that gets loved. If you want to be indispensable to other people, you have to bring love. Okay, so bringing love means aligning yourself with people who match your values, not your wounds. It's not about your woundedness. It's about self-love. Self-love here means releasing the need to fit in or to prove your worth to any crowd. I want you to ask yourself, what if my uniqueness is the exact medicine that my community needs? What if my rebelliousness is the exact medicine that my community needs? What if my weirdness is the exact medicine that my community needs? And then choose to be your authentic self, not the hero, so that you can manifest people in your life who are just like you, who feel like community. Taurus Rising, for you, this falls in the 10th house, the house of career, legacy, and public image. It's time to let go of the external definition of success, or to let go of the need to control how other people see you. You may be clinging to some ideas of yourself that are more fear-based than you realize. These ideas might be outdated. Aquarius energy is about updating your system. You're here to be a soul-led creator. That means your work is to be meaningful. It's not just about getting the respect, it's about it having meaning. Self-love means defining success for yourself on your own soul spiritual terms. How does it feel to do this work? What version of success will feel like freedom for your soul? How alive does your soul become when you do this work? That's what it's about. Legacy cannot happen without heart. So start with your soul. Gemini Rising, for you, this falls in the 9th house. You're being called to let go of a rigid worldview, of dogma, of the need to always be right, of the need to always have the right answer, of the boxes that you create to interpret the world. Stop hiding behind being an intellectual and being argumentative to avoid being emotionally vulnerable. It's okay to admit that you're scared. It's okay to admit that you don't know what the future holds. It's okay to admit that the human experience in and of itself is traumatic. It's time to absorb a curious and spiritually attuned way of living life. You're here to be brave, to not be afraid to question things. Self-love means trusting your own truth, even if it contradicts who you used to be. It's okay to not believe in something one day and believe in it the next day. What beliefs are you ready to let go of? What beliefs are you ready to outgrow? What mindsets do you currently have around spirituality, around religion, around philosophy that you need to expand? What worldview are you currently nursing that's keeping you small? Cancer Rising, for you, this falls in the 8th house. For you, it's about letting go of emotional enmeshment, of your tendency to control relationships, control attachments, and your cycle of traumas and trauma bonding that you're locked in, that you don't want to escape. I think for many Cancer Rising, they believe intensity means intimacy. They believe if they share intimate moments with people, that lead to a heart-to-heart or even a couple of tears and long hugs, it means that they've built intimacy. They don't understand that the emotional enmeshment of that situation does not mean that this person is going to be intimate with them. There is a sovereign being that lives inside of you that can have this deep longing for intimacy within without losing themselves in others. You're being called back home to yourself. Self-love here means allowing yourself to receive love, to be reborn, allowing yourself to sit in your emotions, allowing yourself to let go of fear. There's a lot of fear-based mentality here with Cancer Rising. A lot of times the emotions that they extend is to control something, to avoid something, to manipulate something. So it's time for you to ask yourself, what fear-based ties am I ready to release in order to reclaim my power? Power never comes from fear. It comes from self-control, not controlling others, but controlling the self. Okay? Leo Rising, for you, this falls in the 7th house. The 7th house is the house of relationships, of mirrors, of one-on-ones, of equities. It's a house traditionally ruled by Libra because it's about balance. It's time to let go of needing validation through relationships or proving your worth with how beautiful you are, how sexy you are, how desirable you are, how much people want you, how much people adore you. A partner who can meet you at your heart space, not your ego, is the kind of partner that you want. You don't want somebody who loves you because of how you look. You don't want somebody who loves you because everybody wants you. You want someone who loves you because they see and know your heart. Self-love here means no longer using others as a mirror of your self-worth. Self-worth is intrinsic. It belongs to you. You should never use your self-worth as a bargaining chip. Okay? So ask yourself, what relationship patterns am I ready to transmute so I can meet love in its purest, most authentic form? When you choose authenticity over performance, you're more likely to align with people who authentically vibrate at that frequency. At that point, love then becomes no longer about getting a prize, but simply about living in truth. Virgo rising, for you, this falls in the 6th house. It's time to let go of compulsively doing to avoid feeling. You're valuable even when you do nothing. You're valuable even when you make mistakes. You're valuable even when you don't overgive and overextend yourself and overattach yourself to routines that no longer help your soul grow. It's time for you to integrate being of service to others with being of service to yourself. Self-love is a duty you must first respond to before you can be helpful to others. Self-love means caring for yourself like someone that you're devoted to, and that requires, Virgo rising, being devoted to your health, your healing, your wellness, your fitness routine, your spirituality, your financial hygiene, your spiritual hygiene. There is so much of your life that you are ignoring in the pursuit of taking care of others. I want you to ask yourself, what part of my daily life reflects fear instead of devotion? A lot of times you do things to avoid not feeling useless. And my recommendation is that you go deeper into that fear and focus on giving yourself all the things that you're afraid you're going to be without if you don't do for others. Okay. Libra rising, for you, this falls in the 5th house. The 5th house is the house of creativity, of pleasures, of the inner child, of Leo. It's time to let go of the fake happiness, the fake joy, the fake positivity. Okay, it's time to let go of the passive aggressiveness. It's time to let go of the self-sabotage, the people-pleasing. They need to be loved, It's time to let go of the need to manipulate how others see you via charm. What the world really needs is your truth, not your charm. A fully expressed, joy-centered soul is a person who creates for the sake of creation. Okay? It's a person who shares for the sake of sharing. Self-love means reclaiming your joy without guilt, reclaiming your creativity without guilt, giving your inner child a voice without guilt. It's time for you to actually listen to your inner child and allow her to take space, because it's only in honoring your true feelings that you can be playful, that you can be creative, that you can be joyful. What creative or playful part of yourself have you abandoned that you're ready to reclaim? That's the journey for you. Scorpio rising, for you, this falls in the 4th house. The 4th house is the house of our mothers, our emotional foundation, our roots, our home. It's time to let go of the emotional armor and the survival identity that you built to feel safe as a child. You have to stop clinging to family stories that limit your emotional truth. A grounded soul who knows how to self-soothe and build new roots is who your future self is, okay? That's who you're supposed to evolve into. Someone who can take care of their own emotional needs and build new roots outside of their family. Self-love here is about reparenting your inner child. And you're being called to do this with radical compassion, with radical acceptance. What emotional weights are you carrying that isn't yours to carry anymore? How much trauma from your home, from your mother, from your roots are you still carrying? How much emotional dysregulation do you experience daily as a result of this trauma, this quiet trauma that goes unspoken? Are you grounding yourself in who you are, who you've become in spite of this trauma? And if so, how are you self-soothing? How are you taking care of your emotional world independently of who's around you? How are you creating a new foundation for yourself within? Sagittarius rising, for you, this falls in the 3rd house, the house of communication, thinking, and siblings. Let go of over-explaining yourself. Let go of making every emotional problem an intellectual problem. Let go of the need to be understood, to feel safe. Stop doing, moving, and making noise just to avoid quiet, just to avoid silence, just to avoid your own feelings. Stop running away from yourself. Sagittarius Rising, it's time to examine how the busybody that you are is really just a coping mechanism that you use to avoid your emotional issues. What you're here to evolve into is a wise person, a curious mind, someone who shares ideas that liberates not just themselves, but everybody else. Self-love for you is about trusting your voice, trusting that your voice matters, trusting that you're the one with a lot of information to provide, and you don't need external agreement to be right. You can be right, but if you're surrounded by people who want to dim your light and who tell you that you're wrong, it's not going to make any difference to you if your self-esteem is in their hands. You know what I mean? You could be right, but if you're waiting for them to co-sign that you're right, and their whole agenda is to make you feel suppressed, then they're never going to make you feel good. This is why it's not about external agreement. Your thinking is just for you. Your communication style needs to be adjusted based on who you're communicating with, okay? People who are determined to not understand you are never going to make you feel understood. People who are determined to invalidate your experience are never going to make you feel seen. That's the whole point. They're never going to make you feel safe. They want you to feel unsafe and unheard. And you have accustomed yourself to running away from this simple truth. Intellectual bypassing is not going to help you fix that emotional issue. You have to ask yourself, what psychological loops am I finally ready to dissolve? What limiting beliefs do I have about communication do I need to change to evolve? Capricorn Rising, for you, this falls in the second house, which is the house of securities, values, and self-worth. It's time to let go of equating productivity with value, okay? Just because you're productive and you're able to control your calendar doesn't mean what you're producing is valuable. Doesn't mean that you're adding value to the world or to your life. It's time to stop sacrificing your peace to keep an image of stability. If you're not peaceful in your situation, then you need to get out of it, whatever that situation is. Values are things that bring peace. They're things that bring stability. They're things that bring love. It's time for you to really think about your self-esteem and what you define as valuable and what's not valuable. You have a relationship with security that can be unhealthy at times. Capricorn Rising believes that they have to endure through any and everything in order to maintain a certain image. And what you're here to evolve into is a soul who knows their worth, regardless of external validation. We don't hang on to material validation to prove our worth. Self-worth here means we honor our values. We prioritize our inner wealth. And it's from that inner wealth that outer wealth is created. So ask yourself, where am I devaluing myself by holding on to outdated forms of safety? What are some situations, some things, some mechanisms, some ideas that I had that made me feel safe before that I no longer feel safe, that I need to let go of? Aquarius Rising, it's time to let go of this persona of being unique and rebellious. It's time to stop using your uniqueness as a shield from intimacy and evolution. Being different is okay. Making that your entire identity is limiting. A fully embodied version of your truth as an Aquarian is not a fragment of who you are. It's the whole of who you are. It's not just an idea, because in reality, everybody is different. Everyone is unique compared to anyone else. And what we're here to do is integrate our uniqueness with others' uniqueness. Self-love here is about integration. It's not about performance. So ask yourself, what part of my identity feels outdated or performative? And who am I without this identity? So much like Leo, Aquarius is attached to their identity. And these two have a theme around identity, persona, their life purpose. All of that is intertwined. While Leo boldly demands it, Aquarius rejects it. And sometimes that rejection is also a rejection of community. So it's really about integrating your otherness into community so that you can be of service to others and yourself. In other words, do not reduce yourself to a singular identity of being rebellious. You're so much more than that. Pisces Rising, for you, this falls in the 12th house. The 12th house is about the subconscious mind. It's about spiritual closure and endings. You're being called to let go of the martyr syndrome, of the need to create problems and then make yourself the victim of them. You're being called to let go of the need to escape reality to be able to cope with it. You're being called to avoiding your feelings. Pisces is a water sign, so when a Pisces becomes too avoidant of their emotional world, they start working in their shadows. Stop clinging to karmic loops just because they feel familiar. It's time to let go of what no longer works for you and embrace a new destination. A Pisces rising who is evolved knows the difference between surrendering and self-sacrificing. They know the difference between being helpful and being a martyr. Self-love here is about deep energetic hygiene and spiritual boundaries. You are responsible for yourself first and foremost spiritually, and it's important to make your emotional and spiritual world your priority so that you can take responsibility for your decisions. So ask yourself, what emotional weight am I finally ready to lay to rest? And who do I become without this emotional weight? For all of us, this full moon is about letting go of what we're clinging to the most that's keeping us back from becoming who we really are. This is about shedding an identity structure, an emotional pattern, and burning a soul contract that no longer serves our evolution. Self-love isn't about tenderness and softness. It's bold. It's wild. It's about courageously seeking spiritual alignment. To gain the most spiritual powers under this Aquarius full moon, we need to treat this full moon transit like a spiritual technological reboot, okay? It's about clarity. It's about disrupting the status quo. It's about innovation. It's about elevation. It's about letting go of lies and fakeness and questioning everything. And in doing so, stepping into our radical, true, authentic self. What makes this full moon very powerful is because Aquarius governs liberation from social conditioning, higher intelligence and genius level thinking, detachment from ego and drama. It's about quantum thoughts. It's about the collective or cosmic consciousness. It's also about our future timelines and innovations. When the moon is full in Aquarius, we're given visionary clarity to see where we've outgrown our emotional habits, our personal attachments, or our karmic loops, and the power to break that cycle. It's not about manifesting more of what our ego wants, but rather aligning with what our soul actually came here to do. In order to see clearly, we have to detach. This detachment isn't about being cold, it's about being clear-sighted. It's about clear-sighted compassion. Seeing your story, observing your story without feeling stuck in it. So meditate on your feelings, but let go of your patterns. Look at your behavior as data points. It's not about judgment. It's about using the emotional objectivity and the data to better our process. This full moon is also a clear psychic clutter. Aquarius rules frequency, so your vibe attracts your timeline. It's time to clear your mind and clear your channel. So let this be an energetic reset. Unsubscribe, smudge, burn, let it go, move on. Tune in to the higher mind. This full moon is a direct line to the Akashic field, okay? So we want to meditate under the moon and say, show me what I've been unwilling to see. Channel, journal, and write. Ask for visions. Aquarius rules the future, but only if you unplug from the past. Aquarius isn't about what was, it's about what could be. So under this moon, we want to download our next evolutionary software. This full moon is also calling us to break one major pattern. Remember, it's about liberation, so we don't want to waste it on our comfort zone and comfort rituals. We want to be ready to become who we actually are. That means leaving toxic obligations, toxic habits, and identities behind, having one radical, honest conversation with ourselves, ending a pattern that drains our energy. Just choose one major pattern that you want to break and break it. This is a great time to recode your identity. This moon is a huge quantum leap if we want to stop being who our wounds told us to be. Ask yourself, what part of my identity is no longer true? What future version of myself is ready to emerge? If I were free of all programming, what would I choose today? Then act on that. Even if it's just a 1% shift. That's how timelines work. We have to make a shift energetically for that shift to manifest in the physical realm. Lastly, let's merge our intellect with our heart. Aquarius is mental, but this moon sits opposite Leo the sun, which is all heart-centered living. The secret power of this moon is integrating both the heart and the mind. So we want to use the insight to free our heart and use the logic to build a better container for our emotional truth. When the mind serves the heart, you become unstoppable. And that is truly the age of Aquarius. It demands coherent humans who are mentally sharp and emotionally sovereign. Sovereignty is about self-control, it's about choice, and it's about agency. So, under this full moon, sit in silence. Say out loud, I now release all frequencies, stories, and systems that no longer serve my evolution. Hold your palms open. I am open to receive visions, timelines, and truths that align with my highest path. Visualize yourself surrounded by violet and electric blue lights. Let it pulse through your energetic field, dissolving old attachments. And then journal. One sentence. I'm ready to become blank. Okay? Whatever comes next, trust it. That's your upgrade. Let it be. Let's close it up with the final mantra for this Aquarius full moon. I release what limits me. I choose what liberates me. I align with what I am becoming. I release what limits me. I choose what liberates me. I align with what I am becoming. I release what limits me. I choose what liberates me. I align with what I am becoming. This full moon transit is going to be the most impactful for Aquarius Rising, Leo Rising, Scorpio Rising, and Taurus Rising. I hope you guys make the best of this full moon in Aquarius transit. Happy full moon in Aquarius, and thank you for listening to the Aquarius podcast. I look forward to catching up with you on August 23rd for the new moon in Virgo. You can book your astrology reading at intuitivehealing.com. You can also watch videos at Intuitive Healing here on YouTube for Astrology 101 content. Listen to the Aquarius podcast on Spotify, as well as here on YouTube for your horoscope. If you're interested in astrology and love connections, you can visit at Styled Under Libra. And of course, for health and wellness and holistic healing, visit at Styled Under Virgo for all of your astrology content. Thanks so much for watching.